Hey VC, what's up? It's been a whole long time. It's been a minute since I've recorded something on this channel. So long, maybe like a year and a half. I don't know. But I think all things in due course, all things in their time. And I just had so much to say that I wanted to just jump on. So I'm not using my usual camera. I'm not using the usual stuff. I'm just literally recording on my phone to just reach out and say hello, first of all. You know me already. You know, I always say I only talk when I have something to say. And so, here I am. So, I guess this kind of, I guess today's chat is maybe life updates, jazz updates. And I guess I'm also inspired by something that one of the Jazz Shepherd's videos that he put out fairly recently, I think. So what's happened is that I've not been taking in a whole lot of jazz content recently. My whole life in the last year and a half has had lots of upheavals. I've moved 3 times, moved house twice, and just lots of transitions and changes. I've just moved into my new place about 2 weeks ago, and my things were in storage. I'm now taking out some stuff, some things I have not played in a long time, some records, but also not just that, just coming back into a sense of self and a sense of what makes me in a sense, and kind of tuning into my home frequency in a sense. And jazz is a huge part of that. And what's been happening too is that, so we have this group, or I am a part of a group that meets, well, we should meet every 2 weeks, I think. But that's kind of fallen off in the last few months or up to a year. So we meet on Zoom to talk about jazz. And I know a lot of you also know these folks. I'm sure that in the jazz community online, that you are familiar with a lot of the folks who I talk to, who I have the privilege of talking to, the absolute privilege of speaking to and getting to know. So we have not been meeting as much. I guess life happens, life changes, all of that. But that group of guys, so I'm the only girl who's on the call with these guys typically. And no, I love it so much because it's home. It's a home. And so finding that sense of kinship and belonging, which jazz gives to me, finding that sense of community around something that is so important to me. And I'll talk more about that. But so it's been moving into a new place, recalibrating to a sense of home, also home frequency, home energy, home baseline, what makes me feel at home inside myself. And I've been missing my jazz group friends, and I suppose, I know we will get back into some kind of a schedule of talking again, but just to say that those guys are so important in terms of contributing to a sense of home for me, because as many of us in this hobby of not just jazz but jazz on vinyl, it's not like we have a whole ton of folks who are readily available on call to talk to us about our very obscure, and not obscure but esoteric hobby. In a sense, to us it's life and it's breath, but it's not always the most accessible kind of thing to a lot of folks in our lives. So having that community to discuss and to rap about something that gives us that sense of home and that sense of grounding, because jazz for me is that. And so to go back to the kind of inspiration for this video and this discussion with you guys, it's the Jazz Shepherd. He had a video talking about something about the essence of it is like jazz as spiritual water. In fact, I kind of wrote down some phrases from him in my jazz notebook, which is right over there. I won't get it right now, but that was sort of the inspiration for me coming on here to kind of recalibrate and reconnect rather with what does jazz mean to me, what does music mean to me, and this genre of music. And so he was talking about the function of music in a sense. In other words, you know, that we in the community, of course, we talk about pressings, you know, and we fish out our records and talk about the best pressings. And of course, we are concerned with the integrity of the listening experience. And so, of course, we are concerned for making that the best possible. And so pressings come about, and, you know, there is the historicity of what we collect. We're collectors of music, and it's all of that. But beneath all of that, it's what we're listening to. It's music. And to me, I mean, it's been a long time since I've recorded some stuff, but the first few videos on this channel have been me talking about just, well, what is this? What is music? What is this thing that we are listening to? And, you know, the Jazz Shepherd, I mean, I love that video for so many reasons. I mean, he brought up a lot of stuff about Jamaica, for example, and Jamaican music. Of course, I'm Jamaican, as many of you may know or may not know, but the deeper energy of music and the deeper frequency exchange or frequency absorption that takes place when you're listening to music, that's what it's about, you know. And so this idea of jazz as being spiritual water, and for me, I don't apologize for the fact that jazz for me is a healing and therapeutic experience, principally for me. So that's what it is in its fundamental sort of form for me. It's spiritual water. So beneath the discussion of pressings and, you know, who recorded what and where and all of that, it's a direct experience of frequencies, you know. So it's interesting. I was thinking as I was watching his video, the Jazz Shepherd's video, that for me, in terms of how I receive and perceive things, it has to do a lot with what I call direct perception. So I don't have to know who made this. I don't really care who made it. I mean, on some level, I don't have to know who made something. What I'm feeling is, or what I'm sensing, or what I'm picking up on or interacting with is a direct perception of something that to me holds beauty. And so it's like the frequency of the sound is interacting with me on a very direct level. And so I think that experience is what the Jazz Shepherd is talking about in terms of jazz as being this nourishing water for the soul, that literally as you listen to this music, there's something that takes place. And it changed my life completely when I began to listen to jazz, and there was no turning back, as many of you know. I mean, it's not like I grew up in a household where that was the kind of, you know, normal music that would have been played. You know, it wasn't that for me. I was completely independent, my own independent pursuit, which is kind of how I am too, that I just kind of go off on these tangents and they have no reference in my family. But yeah, so it changed my life completely to directly be interfacing with these frequencies that so restored my soul. And it wasn't up here. And it's not about it being like, oh, spiritual jazz, even though, you know, I own a few records of that kind of genre as well. But it's just, wow, I'm directly apprehending, feeling, sensing, perceiving an experience of such profound spiritual beauty and grace. And there's something that happens. And so, I mean, I remember recording a couple of podcasts with my jazz friend, Noel, and even talking on some videos on this channel too. And I think the question was, well, why jazz? And for me, I think my answer was, and still is, it's the search for beauty. It's that human search for something that dignifies the soul. And the soul is reminded of something of its origins. It's reminded of the place that it comes from, in a sense. And jazz is the most direct way in which I experienced that. I experienced that, the first time I experienced that was when I listened to Bob Marley's and the Wailers' first record, Catch a Fire. And I would have been in high school at the time. So I would have been about 15 or so. And certainly by the time I was 16, I had collected all of the entire Bob Marley catalog and the Wailers catalog. And so, that was a huge thing for me, knowing it very in depth. And it was the first time when I played Catch a Fire that I felt like I went to church, that I had some kind of transcendental experience via music. So you like music as all of that, but there's something else that happens. And so music has that capacity to do that. And so I guess I'm just talking about the whole point of me on here, I suppose, is just getting back to, well, what is this thing that we're doing? What are we doing when we listen to music? And I am putting jazz on the table in particular, which I think is unique in terms of its ability to directly convey frequencies that we absorb here. It is literally, for me, when I'm listening to certain music, it is like an energy reworking. And that's how we perceive music in general, right? It's frequency. And so while we talk about pressings and players, and of course, the player is the vehicle through which this music expresses, and they put their own soul stamp on their instrument and how they play. So a Lee Morgan playing a trumpet, a Miles, a Kenny Durham, a Chet, they are sort of interacting with this energy of life and putting their own unique frequential signature on their music, and we receive it, and it gives us a portion of truth, and so there's all of that. But so underneath all of the pressings talk, we are having an experience. I totally agree with the Jazz Shepherd that if the focus becomes the container through which we hear the music, after a certain while, you're going to lose me. The container being the pressing, the medium, there's all of that. But at the core, we are involved in an activity of just taking in these frequencies. And I'm just amazed. I am totally always amazed I'm just blown away by the sheer density of beauty, that makes sense. Concentration of beauty within this particular art form known as jazz. It's like it contains, pound for pound, so much beauty that it really just is incredible. So much spiritual nourishment. And so that's what I am mostly concerned with when I'm listening to music. It's that thing. And I don't mean it like, oh, let me listen to the let me play this and go and go meditate. But invariably, it is a meditative experience. It is something that is engaging my spirit in a deeper kind of way. And so I have to listen because it is that spiritual water. And I found in recent years that I am just unable at this point to listen to certain other kinds of music anymore. Certainly I enjoy, especially if it's like things I grew up on and that kind of sentimental attachment or value that we have to what we used to listen to. But in terms of just what soothes me, once you know jazz, you can't go back. In my experience anyway, that once you've interacted with and you become attuned to these frequencies, these soul nourishing frequencies that directly interact with your spirit, it's impossible to step down, in a sense, to have a diet of music that is not that. So yeah, of course there's variety, and you want to hear something else, and you might enjoy a night out playing something, or going to a party or whatever and hearing some other kinds of music, where we are diverse beings and we need to express in a very eclectic kind of way. Fine. But I'm just saying that for me, and maybe what I'm talking about is it's a very personal thing. That's all I can do. I can only share my personal experience with you. But what I'm saying is that I have not been able to go back because the frequencies that I'm interacting with via jazz have elevated me, my perception, my spirit to a certain, it's carried me to its level. And so it's almost impossible to go back. But for me, that is the core. That is the almost the raison d'etre, the core of why I'm interacting with this music, because it does something to me. It is a spiritual water. In fact, I'm going to just grab that, my jazz notebook. I want to go back and see what I wrote down from the Jazz Shepherd and see, because he said some phrases that really sort of just deeply clicked with me. Let me just grab my notebook. 1 second. Right. So what did he say? Yes. Jazz is spiritual water. Jazz is joy juice. Joy juice. And, it's like the frequency of joy and it containing those things. And it's not just about everything in jazz being pleasant it's always happy. When I say joy, I think I mean, what I'm trying to say is harmonic coherence. Yeah, meaning that coherence, an alignment that is produced through these musical frequencies that produce harmonious states in the body and all of that, or they help to produce harmonious states. So certain jazz records, especially of the free jazz and spiritual jazz kind, I mean, they might be confronting in the sense of they are, kind of ripping out your insides. But that confronting nature of, let's say, certain free jazz records, at the end of the day, the kind of end state is a clearing out. The frequencies in that music interact with you in a way that still acts to produce this kind of harmonic coherence. So in other words, to put it in English, I suppose, is that you clear out your shit. You listen to some Coltrane, and you clear out your shit. Your insides are cleared out, and you're now in a state of more internal coherence because you've taken some medicine that, even though it might be confronting, it might bring up certain feelings, it might rub you a certain kind of way, but at the end of it, you are cleared, you are restored, something happens to you that is restoring you to a frequential harmony and coherence within yourself. And so, yeah, that to me, so, for me in the music, I don't know, I can't tell you, I'm not a musician. I don't know everything about the music, from a kind of factual standpoint, but I know what I hear. And I know what I hear, so, for example, it's not like all of us who are listening to music might know, for example, how how a baritone sax looks or all of that. But we know when we hear it, we know what frequencies it produces. We know when Pepper Adams is playing on the bari sax, that we know how that feels. We can say, there's that frequency. I know that thing. And so it's that direct apprehension of frequency that I'm interested in, which I find healing, and I find it to be, just as the Jazz Shepherd said, this spiritual water. And so, I guess I'm just leaving you with that. I just am retuning into why do I do what I do. We have habits, we're listening to our records. And so what are we doing when we are involved in the activity of putting that down on the turntable and playing it and listening to it? What's happening with us? So hope you all are well. I've missed you guys so much. And I look forward to chatting and reconnecting, and be blessed. Take care. Bye.